Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Arthenex Plays Pillars of Eternity. So, as you guys can see, in between episodes, since we were at a tavern, I have recruited and created two new characters to join our party. That was all I could afford, but I figured that since I'm recruiting them at level 1 and I want them to level up as much as I can, I might as well recruit them now. So, let's just take a quick look at them. The first one is Lasophy over here. She is a snow elf monk. And as you can see, she's relatively fast and strong, incredibly agile, incredibly perceptive, but not particularly intelligent. Her job is going to be, first of all, is kind of a secondary tank type character to soak up some damage since she is a monk, and monks are good at that, and in fact they need to take some damage in order to power their abilities. But primarily she's going to be a super interrupter. She's going to attack as fast as possible. That's why she has really high dex, and her really high perception is giving her 30 interrupt, which will hopefully mean that in combination with the reduced concentration aura from my for my Chanter, she's going to be really good at interrupting enemies and keeping them from acting. So anytime an enemy has a slow attack speed or is a spellcaster or anything like that, hopefully she'll be able to lock them down and keep them from being very effective. The other character I created is a priest. Eferol here, she's a Amara priest, and her job is going to be to heal us. She's kind of the opposite. She has really low perception, which means that her deflection is going to suffer and her reflex save is going to suffer. But with really high might, she should be a pretty good healer. I'm thinking she's mainly going to be a ranged attacker because she's got relatively low endurance, relatively low deflection. And yeah, as you can see, her deflection is only 13, so she's going to be very susceptible to getting critically hit. So I'm going to try and keep her in lighter armor for the most part, and have her use ranged attacks and spells. And then, of course, we have our main character here, who's a heavy armor, kind of second-rank chanter. I switched him back to the quarterstaff that I picked up, so he can attack from the second rank again, probably standing behind our monk here. And we have our wizard that we just picked up as well, who has some interesting spells, and he's using a scepter. I'm not sure. I think that's a melee weapon. If it is, I'm probably going to want to swap it out for a ranged one, but we'll see. He's a wood elf, so he gets bonuses to ranged combat. So, assuming that that's not a ranged weapon, I'm going to need to get another one. In order to recruit these guys, I sold off most of the stuff I've been accumulating. I'd also like to say that we're officially heading into unknown territory here. Up to this point, I have kind of seen the storyline via watching other Let's Play videos, but from here on out, I'm going in totally blind. I have no idea what to expect. So, yeah. So I hopefully it will go well. Okay. So,
Yes.
Okay, you have your.
Yeah.
Then you have your weapon.
How may I help?
All right. It looks like we're good. So, our main character here.
Well met, friend.
Needs to rest. So, let's take a room. Interesting. So I can get +1 perception, +1 mechanics, or +2 resolve for 113 copper. I'm just going to do the common room, I think, for now. My funds are not particularly super high. Your sleep is restless and fevered, assaulted by hisses and whispers, blanketed with a suffocating anxiety. You open your eyes to awaken and find yourself in front of Gilded Velo's gallows tree, the creaking of its ropes growing louder in your mind until the sound is deafening. Hanging from the tree is an old dwarf woman whose face is shriveled inward like moldering fruit. Her head hangs limply to one side. As you look at her, she looms larger and larger in your mind until she is mere inches from your face. Suddenly, her head snaps up and her eyes open and they are empty, and behind them is a vast nothingness that makes your stomach drop. Her mouth slowly parts, and with a gust of rancid air, she speaks a word. Watcher! You jolt awake, the foul smell of the dwarf woman's breath still permeating your nostrils. Sweat runs down your face in thick droplets, and your skin is soaked from head to toe. You remember the woman. You remember seeing her decaying face when you spoke with the magistrate. He called her an animancer. Though it fills you with new, queasy apprehension, you feel a strange compulsion to see this woman once more, if only to confirm that she is truly dead. Alright. So, it looks like our main character leveled up, but I don't think any of our other ones did. But we gained 728 experience, so that's why I recruited our party members before I did anything else as soon as we had the ability to do so, because you never know when you're going to get experience. So let's level up our Chanter here. So I think I'm going to leave my lore. Well, let's see. So that would allow him to use level 3 scrolls. I haven't found any level 3 scrolls yet. I'd like to give him a couple of ranks of stealth, because he's going to be our trap finder as well. So let's give him a couple ranks of stealth and one of these two. Or mechanics. Whichever one we don't do this level, we'll do next level. I guess we'll do... mechanics. Coming up against scrolls or locks you can't pick is much more frustrating than finding scrolls you can't use yet, because you could save the scrolls, but oftentimes the locks are use it or lose it. Alright, so we'll do level 5 mechanics and level 2 stealth. Alright, proceed. Oh, I can choose another one of these. So I can have more move speed and reflex. I have 2 characters with poor reflex defense. I can have reduced damage, or I can have plus 10 fortitude and will defense. Do I have anybody with poor will defense? I don't think so. I'm not super in love with any of these, actually. I probably won't use them much. Let's take the move speed and reflex. I can see move speed potentially being helpful in some situations, and reflex is my worst defense, and it's also my monk's worst defense. So let's take this one. And that's it. We just got skills and one more basic chant. Alright.
Yeah, sure.
Let's take a quick look at my party formation here. I think I'm going to switch... Oh, let's see. Let's look at this custom formation here. Yeah. Maybe something like that. Our two melees up front, one behind the other. What does that look like? Yeah, I like that better. At least until we go around corners. Then it's going to get a little messed up. You know what, actually... I'm going to move my cleric up to there. I'm going to do that formation instead. My cleric is a little bit tankier than my wizard, and I want her to be close to the front of my party so that her aura will affect more people. So, if we look at the map, there's a Temple of Ethoas, which is ruined because of the combat. Although my priest is actually a priest of Ethoas, which is now outlawed in this region.
No problem.
Alright. So here's... Oh yeah, you can see her corpse is glowing. Alright, well let's talk to her. The squat, distended body of an elderly dwarf woman dangles from a thin, crooked bough that sags at the tug of her noose. The bloated purple flesh of her neck, worn away in patches like moth-eaten linen, bulges over the rope that suspends her, and her lifeless head lolls forward rigidly from one side to the other when the breeze shifts. You perceive a faint glow around her that casts no light on its surroundings, but there is a tepid warmth to it, and you feel somehow that you could reach out and touch it, not with your hands, but with some aspect of yourself that has no worldly dimension. Well, obviously we're going to reach out for it. You take a deep breath, clearing your mind, focusing on your objective. As you exhale, you feel yourself spreading out towards the hanging woman, perceiving all that lies between you and her with a new, unfamiliar awareness. Once you have expanded enough to reach her, there is a sudden jolt to your mind, a ringing, electric surge of images and words and sounds. Involuntarily, you shut your eyes and feel yourself being pulled down to some deeper consciousness in a space occupied only by you and the hanging woman. And when you open them again, she is staring at you with eyes clouded in milky fog, her body still swaying in a wind you no longer feel from a tree that stands planted in a misty void. The woman gives a slow nod of her head, the rope creaking as she does so, and she smiles at you.
Have you come here for me, dear? Or have you gotten lost? Ah, it is both, I think. Yes?
How are you able to speak to me? Aren't you dead?
Is that what we're doing? Perhaps it just seems that way. Perhaps it is the easiest way for your mind to make sense of it. I think it is a very good choice.
Am I imagining this?
No, I think not. A pity that. It would be simpler. A mercy, even. To not have to wander anymore, no? Alas, we are here, you and I. Wherever here may be.
I need to understand something that's happened to me. She nods, a look of pity on her face, as though consoling a child.
The world looks a little different than it used to, is that it? Feels like you're noticing things for the first time that have always been there. You have seen past the shroud. It only takes an instant. Your soul remembers, yes? Remembers how it sees when it leaves the body, like being reminded of a dream you had forgotten. You are a watcher now, and a watcher you will stay.
What is a watcher?
What indeed? Long hours have many animancers spent studying such things. Not I, though. Not I. I'll tell you what I know, though, since fair is fair. And here we are, visiting, you and I, and it reminds me of better times.
Well, that shouldn't be hard, considering that you're dead.
Souls pass on. Some say through Audra stones, which are the blood veins of the world. They leave the world for a time and are reborn into it, sometimes more than they were before, but usually less and seldom the same. For all souls there is a time where they do not live, yet have not passed on, and those souls roam the world, same as you or I, either leaving or lost. But no one sees them because they have forgotten how.
So you're telling me that there's just a bunch of ghosts wandering around looking for how to pass on to the next life? That seems disturbingly morbid, but also kind of cool.
A watcher sees, though, knows what to look for. And sometimes they know a person just by looking at them, know where they've been in ages past when their bodies were other bodies. See memories even their owner can't recall. A wonder to behold when all goes well. A wonder!
What do you mean, when all goes well?
Oh, nothing to be afraid of, I'm sure. It's just much to take in for some. Sometimes there's trouble sleeping or other difficulties.
She smiles at you reassuringly, fanning out a tuft of long whiskers that sprouts from one of her cheeks.
You should see old Merwald. He could tell you much more than I. A watcher just like you. Helped many in his day. Took up in an old keep no one would claim. Not far, not far. Kadnua, beyond the Black Meadow. He will welcome the company.
I think I survived a bivouac. Do you know why?
Did you now, dear? My, that would be something, wouldn't it? Could be luck, could certainly be. A storm can be a careless thing. Or maybe it got its hands around your soul but couldn't pick it up. A soul can be heavy if it stayed in one piece through its time. Strong souls, we call them in the trade. Cold, I mean. Called them. Those days are all behind me, no?
So you said that souls break apart over time?
Oh, yes. Entropy. Rimagan's work. We know little of why or how. We lose pieces of ourselves when we die and pick up pieces of others when we are born again, but less than what we lost. We tried to stop it with the animantic sciences, but with little success.
Sciences. Interesting. Apparently there's a whole science built around how souls work. I'm intrigued.
A very small few resist Rimergan's influence and stay together through some force of defiance, at least for a time. But they all succumb eventually, I think.
I want to know something about you.
Me? I'll bore you to tears, though.
Who are you, anyway?
And here I thought you'd come to visit me in particular. Caldara de Baranzi, of the Valian Royal Academy of Animantic Sciences. Not the greatest of their number, but I came here all the same because this was where help was needed.
You can see that you were not able to offer any help after all. What happened to you, anyway? She laughs, a rasping, choked cackle escaping between rows of buttery yellow teeth, causing her body to bob up and down with each spasm. Seeing your blank expression, she catches herself.
Oh, come now. Such a question. As though the answer were plain as a rope tied for strangling. Allow an old dwarf her last bit of cheer. Well, I came where I was needed, didn't I? Offered my services to Lord Radric for a pittance. A humble pittance. I was to examine the Lord's wife, see why the gods have seen fit to poison her womb. Studied her for months, looked high and low for impurities, tested her valence, the permeability of her essence. Do you know what I found?
No. Of course I don't know what you found, dwarf woman. How could I possibly know what you found? Am I some kind of mind reader?
Nothing at all. A healthy woman, head to toe, blessed with a beautiful soul. Such a sweet woman, too. Meek, but warm-hearted. A few months' time, and the lord of the house demanded answers. For a time, I told him what he wanted to hear. Oh, yes, my lord. She is riddled with imbalances. I must have time to cure her. As the birth drew near, he grew impatient, as lords do. And this is where I've ended up.
What exactly is an animancer?
A student of the soul. Something so basic, yet so poorly understood. But so many breakthroughs have been made in my lifetime. Had been. To hear the locals tell it, we're a gang of soul manglers that preys upon the weak-minded. And the worst of us are...
Nothing new there. You get them in every trade.
But the best of us? The best? Inspirations. Miracle workers. My parents were soul twins. Miserable before they met, empty inside. It was an animancer who helped one find the other. Turned their lives around. You wouldn't believe the stories. Amnesiacs helped to remember their lives. The suicidal brought back from the brink of oblivion. The elderly afforded extra moments to say their goodbyes. How soon we forget when we're afraid.
I admit I'm skeptical.
It's a fascinating science. A fascinating time to be alive in a place like Deerwood that does not control the research, no? I love the Valian Republics for many things, but their recent caution will leave them behind, I fear.
I see. So it's not only dangerous and controversial, it's also forbidden.
Of course, dear.
Okay, I guess that's everything. Farewell.
Goodbye, my dear. It was lovely visiting.
So I wonder how long this took. Caledra closes her eyes and her head sups forward over the noose, and your surroundings seem to bleed into your vision from some unknown place of waiting. Are you alright? You seem lost just now. This happens a lot. You'll have to get used to it. It's good to know, but I don't suppose you tell me what it was all about. I'm a watcher, as it turns out. His arched eyebrows recede into his hood. Well, that's interesting. He gives you a sly grin. And I expect this has something to do with the hooded figures in the ruins, In any case, I appreciate your honesty. Since we're traveling together, it's probably wise for us to share these things. What do you know about Watchers? Only that they're rare and that they seem to have unique insights into certain soul conditions, as you just demonstrated. I could see someone else might have a certain soul condition. Let's continue on. Alright.
17 and a half.
17 and a half what? The smell of pipe smoke, all at once earthy and sweet, winds its way into your nostrils. Your eyes trace the smoke to its origin, where you find a broad man with straw-colored hair leaning against a mossy rock wall, his pipe held to his lips with one meaty hand. He looks you directly in the eyes, but the look is not aggressive. He regards you with a particular smirk.
17 and a half. Well, could be 18, depending on how you count the dwarf woman.
Oh, he's talking about the bodies on the trees. I'm sorry?
The dwarf woman. You were trying to figure out whether to count her as a full person. I think you oughta.
Well, I appreciate that, my good man, considering that I'm also a dwarf, and I certainly consider myself a full person.
The people hanging from the tree. 18 of them. Well, last I counted, anyway.
Is that what you people do for fun around here?
Name's Adair. Though to the people around here, might as well be 19. Don't think I'd put you much higher than 22, 23 tops. You look like the sort that likes to get involved.
And you're right about that. What makes you think I was interested in the dwarf woman, besides the fact that I was staring at her without blinking for several minutes?
I was smoking over here, saw you staring at her. Twice I refilled my pipe. You never so much as blinked. Your mouth was so slack I took you for a Radric at first.
That's impossible. I don't drool half as much as that. Ha, so you're already familiar. Still, you have to forgive my curiosity. Round here, we prefer to turn a blind eye to our dead. Sure. Do you know what a watcher is?
Careful, friend. Let's not use that word round here. There'll be any number of Radric bootlickers within earshot. Ciphers, animancers, watchers. Same thing in the eyes of folks around here, Radric especially. They come through these parts all the time with their cures, preying on the desperate. None of them are who they claim to be.
Well, I don't claim to be anyone.
Of course, seeing you with that funny look, I'd be halfway inclined to believe you were having some kind of communion with that dwarf. Either case, maybe I'm not 19 after all. No offense.
None taken. Good, they don't mean it personal when I hang folks here. I have to remind myself.
The town's had it in for me for a long time now. Only fellow who ever stuck up for me, well, he's number 18 up there. My headman on the farm. Used to be my captain during the war.
What war? Saints' War, only one in my lifetime. Fella decides he's the living incarnation of Eothas, overthrows Redsiras, marches on Deerwood. So we gave him a Deerwoodian hello. Alright, I'm not that dense. I don't need those. I know who both of those people are. What does this town have against you?
Pick the wrong god. That's what it comes down to. Used to be a lot of Aethys worshippers in Gilded Vale. That mess of rocks over there, that was a temple to him, to give you some idea.
Well, there's one more now that Ephrail's shown up.
Then one day, somebody named Widewind shows up on Deerwood's doorstep. Says he's the living flesh of Aethys. Got an army with him. Suddenly, Aethys isn't so popular in these parts. My brother Woden and me, neither of us believed it. No way was that Aethys. He enlisted, then I did too. But, he didn't make it back.
I'm sorry to hear that, Eder.
After the war, people took to punishing Aethys worshippers, accusing them of treason. Got real ugly, especially after the legacy started. Folks needed someone to blame. I was safe because I fought, but then this rumor starts that my brother, that he was on the wrong side. And I wasn't so safe anymore. Until my headman stepped in and said they'd have to hang him to get to me. Seems that's no longer a concern. Of course, the townies don't do the hanging these days, but when Radric's men come, they got no problem doing the pointing.
Beginning to see that this is not a very friendly place to visit. You can see why I was eager to leave. If you're next to be hanged, what are you still doing here? Drinking, mostly. Point of fact, I'm on my way out. I just haven't figured out where I'm going yet. Not a whole lot of places out there that don't think Wadewen's legacy started with Wadewen. Well, we should travel together. Where are you headed? Some place called Saint Noir. There's an old watcher up there who might be able to help me.
Seem to remember hearing something about that years ago. He tamed that place. People would seek him out for all kinds of things. Troubles of the soul, questions for the departed. Of course, that was back when you didn't have to say watcher with a hush on your breath. A man such as that, there'd be things I'd want to ask him. Don't know why I never thought of it before. Not sure how I feel about setting out with a stranger. And a strange one at that. But, truth be told, you might be the only one in town who wouldn't feel some relief seeing me swing from that tree.
There's a fine reason if ever I heard one.
All right, then. Guess I'll do some sightseeing. Long as you're not the one picking the sights.
I'm not sure what you mean by that. Alright. So Eder is going to be...
Hope you're not expecting much.
In front here. Defender. Number of engagement targets to 3, but at the expense of attack rate. Oh, interesting. What equipment does he have? Saint's War Armor. Oops, I misclicked. Not want to enchant it. He's got a saber and a shield and a war bow. Okay, I'm going to give the war bow to you instead of this crossbow, and I'm going to give the crossbow to you as a second weapon, just in case this is a not a ranged weapon, which I don't think it is. And then you, let's see, saber, 14 to 21 slash. Oops, keep clicking on that by mistake. 19 to 14 pierce. Fast weapon, but accurate. So this is a slightly slower weapon. Speed average, but it does more damage. Less effective against armor and swords. They're deadly against unarmored enemies. Okay. Alright, well, you can keep the saber for now. Okay. Just out of curiosity, if I were to give you this rapier, 8 to 13. Wow, it does less damage than your unarmed attack. Okay, well, so much for that idea. Right. So you keep that. Alright, let's reset up my formation here. I can have both of you up at the front, I think. And then I'll be right behind. Maybe something like that.
Of course. Of course.
Here's the... You know, before I go talk to him, I'm just going to take a quick look around town. Maybe see what kind of services I can find here besides just the inn. So that's the inn. It's the temple. There's a smithy. A windmill, so it looks like there's, and Alfred's house. Well, I'm already over here. Let's go see what if this person has anything to say. Because walking up and walking into strangers' houses is just something you do in RPGs that you never do in real life. Oh, interesting. These bones are covered by tiny bite marks. What is this? Oh, it's a dog. Waiting for the return of its master. This looks like trouble. Okay. You see a man soar through the air, hitting a nearby wall with a nauseating crunch. He doesn't get up. His attacker, a burly, clean-cut warrior with a carnivorous grin, turns and shoves his fist into the stomach of another assailant, removing another from the impromptu brawl. The bar is a whirlwind of elbows, knees, fists, and feet, with no end in sight, and he is in his element. In the corner, 3 smaller men speak quietly, throwing malicious glances at the larger man in the center. He breaks a chair over a tattooed head, cackling. The trio position themselves in 3 parts of the room, and with a terse nod they charge. Unfortunately for them, the man sees them coming. Something in his eyes burns brightly, and all 3 slump to the ground in agony. That's all in their minds. The burly man bows to a room of the unconscious and incapacitated before sauntering out, off-key whistle trailing behind him. I'm going to go back and look at that. So I wonder if this was Eder. Is this the same one? No, you see a long empty road cutting through 2 large crop fields. The air is silent and the land seems too still for early afternoon. This woman walks slowly along the road, leading a horse, cautiously looking around. She seems to sense something wrong, but is unable to discern what it is. She stops, sniffing at the air, her nose high. Her brow crinkles as she casts about, looking for something. The air is clear, no clouds. She sniffs again, still looking around, confusion clouding her face, mouthing a single word. Fire. She looks out across the fields, her confusion turning to fear. She holds her hand up to block the sun from her eyes and scans the fields again. Not finding what she was looking for, she jumps on her horse's back, the fear quickly becoming panic. She kicks, sending the horse shooting down the path, which bends around some trees to where the farmhouse should be. She pulls up short. Horror now resides on her face as she stared at the burned and charred mess that used to be her family's home. Tears well in her eyes as she kicks again, racing to the rubble. Wow, I wonder how many of these we're going to have. You can see an emaciated boy in chains, black holes for eyes, staring sightlessly at a wall. A man in a dark coat walks in, a scroll and an oddly shaped quill in his hand. The boy glances at him, expressionless, a corpse waiting for animation. The man clucks at him, disapproval clear in his tone. The boy stands, limbs hanging. The man takes the quill and begins to write on the boy's chest, copying sharp, angular symbols from the scroll. The child doesn't flinch as the quill digs into his skin, drawing blood as it goes. The wizard finishes with a flourish and barks some arcane command, setting the symbols to glow dully. The boy cries out, knees hitting the stone hard, his chest burning black and red. Finally the glow disappears, leaving only the hard black scars etched into his skin. He slumps sideways, twitching, his eyes facing the back of his skull. The wizard grunts, kicking him on the leg on his way out. The boy lies on the floor until dawn, eyes still like black holes, the twitches growing into convulsive shakes. Oh, interesting. Oh, I see. This is the top floor of the inn. Okay. Hmm. 2 mechanics plus 3 lockpicks or 3 mechanics. So, oh, he has leveled up. Is he already level 3?
Huh?
Eder is level 3.
Eh?
But these 2 are still level 1. Wow, he has a lot of lore. I'm going to give him some athletics, I think, to go with all of that lore. And do I want to buy another rank in lore? Sure, I can buy another rank in lore. And maybe some stealth with my last point? Sure. I don't think you can save points, so... alright. So I get to pick 2 new spells. Confused. Foe AoE confused for 6.5 seconds. Base 5 seconds versus will, plus 10 accuracy. Okay, confused means they kind of act randomly. AoE hobbled for 3.9 seconds. Okay, the caster gains a lot of elemental resistance. Five burn damage over time when hit for 26 seconds. Not really a fan of that. Drains 33.3 corrode damage as endurance for 13 seconds. Effect. Curse of Blackened Sight. AoE Blinded versus Will. 1.78 meters radius. This is Confused versus Will, plus 10 accuracy, range 6 meters. Range. This is considerably longer range. What does blinding do to them? Accuracy is reduced by 25, perception is reduced by 4, movement is reduced by 2, reflex and deflection are reduced by 20. That is not foe only, but I kind of like that. I think I'd rather confused for 6.5 seconds. How long are they blinded? Blinded for 26 seconds. That is a really long time. Target becomes paralyzed. Wow, that's really powerful. A negative effect. For 10 seconds versus Fortitude, and everyone around them is sickened. Pretty good range. This one attacks Fortitude instead of... Okay. Plus 50 max endurance. Merciless Gaze. Bunch of critical hit bonuses. AoE minus 10 perception, minus 10 intellect, minus 10 resolve versus will. How long does this last? Mine is a speed average. Doesn't say how long it lasts. Mirror image. Okay, necrotic lens. So this is a single target versus Fortitude. Ray of Fire. Creates a scorching ray of flame between the caster and the target, on the target and anyone caught in the way. Okay. Duration 10 seconds. Okay, and this is creates a rebounding ball of fire, inflicting burn damage upon anyone in its path. Versus reflex. Alright. Well, I quite like this one. Attacks their will, blinding them. And then do I want... I probably want these. The question is, which one do I want more? The single target? If I'm going to take single target... Maybe I should take this. It'd be nice to have like a AoE 48.2 meters. This is like super long range too. That's like way longer range than anything. Wow, this is super close range. That's super close range. That's fairly close range. This is like super long range, so I kind of like that idea of having a super long range attack. All right, so we'll take those two: Blackened Sight and Rolling Flame. No new talent unlocks. Okay, done. So now, do we have to edit his grimoire?
How may I help?
No, they were automatically put in there. Okay, good. Okay.
Hey, all right then.
So this returns us to the bottom level of the inn, I take it? Yeah. Anybody here we can talk to? Storm Brightblade, what does he have to say? Oh, more histories, alright. You see a group of young men standing around a makeshift practice target. The man stands in the middle of them, explaining the construction and the use of a bow. He holds it up, pointing out each part as he speaks about it and what it does. He then walks away from the target, telling them to remain where they are, and takes his place at about 200 feet away. He carefully lines up his shot, explaining what he was doing as he does it, and lets the arrow fly. It hits the target dead center, much to the surprise and delight of the boys near it. He smiles, walking towards the boys, talking about proper stance of how to most effectively hold a bow. A noise comes from the tree line near the practice venue, and he stops, scanning the woods, blue eyes squinting against the sun. A shadow moves, making its way through the forest behind them. He draws an arrow and lines up his shot, carefully tracking the motion of the hidden creature. Loosing the arrow, he wastes no time and quickly grabs another. The boys spin, watching the arrow fly into the forest, immediately lost among the trees. There is a sudden, explosive movement in the undergrowth as a deer erupts from the tree line, running across the edge of the clearing. The boys laugh, turning to joke with the man about his lousy shot. They stop talking, seeing him holding the bow and leading the deer with a knocked arrow. They drop to the ground as he looses his last arrow, which flies true and strikes the deer right behind its shoulder, piercing its heart and lungs and dropping it dead almost instantly. The boys stare at the deer for a few seconds and then slowly turn to look at the man, newfound respect in their eyes. He smiles again and breathes a quiet sigh of relief. Interesting. I wonder if that was... Huh. Alright, well, I was going to say, I wonder if that was the deer that we first saw. You see a woman emptying her satchel onto her bed, taking stock of her inventory. Potions, bandages, tinctures, and herbs are scattered throughout her room haphazardly. She bites her lip, head tilted to the side, considering. She begins to repack one item after another, careful deliberation undercut by shaking hands. Each item has a clearly marked place, but no matter how she repacks it, she isn't satisfied. The shaking worsens as she empties it out once more, one hand held to her mouth. Tears eke from her eyes as she gives up all semblance of order and shoves everything she can into the satchel, grabbing it and running out of the bare house. Straightening her back, she walks out to the docks, chin high, eyes hard and red. A gangly young elf offers his condolences, but she can't see him for the ocean ahead of her. She wanders the docks, offering her services as a doctor to anyone who will listen, anyone heading out on the high tide. Less than an hour later, she watches her childhood disappear into the distance, a tiny speck of an island, and tries not to jump. Each one of these is like a little portrait of the person. Oh, here's the cook that we rescued. Let's say hi. Ah, it's you, my savior. He makes a sweeping gesture to indicate the kitchen around you. It's so good to be back. Do not think I will let this go unrewarded. I have decided that you have earned the right to learn one of my most closely guarded secrets. My dearest recipe. After this, you will eat nothing else. A savory pie to keep you hale and hearty. May it serve you well in your travels. Alright. What did we learn? This one. We need grain, beer, and meat. Plus 10 max endurance, plus 1 might, plus 1 perception. Okay. That's helpful, I guess. Alright, I'm going to go back upstairs and see what happens if I try and pick the lock on that chest. Let's do a quick save and then
Right.
send him in here. He has plenty of mechanics. Okay, I gained some experience. And minor ring of deflection. Ooh, nice. Plus 5 deflection. I'm going to give that to my monk. She's my deflection master. Oh. That made him upset. Okay. I won't take the other thing then. It doesn't look like he...
Hey, Gorse.
is immediately going to call the guards, though. So, I will leave that be. She did actually get the ring, though. So, let's equip it. It's going to put her deflection up to 42, which is pretty high. Pretty high. But, of course, she's not wearing armor, so if she gets hit, she's really going to take a beating. Alright, this must be that person's house. All damage type, always ignores. Hey, it's a cat. Can't talk with it. Alfra. What does she have to say? The Dwarvidian woman is standing in front of the fireplace, humming a quiet tune to herself, or perhaps to her unborn child, for she is clearly quite pregnant. She turns her head slightly as you enter.
Welcome.
Well, finally, I was starting to think. The woman makes a startled noise when she turns around and sees you. Oh, I'm sorry, I was expecting someone else. She gives you a cautious smile. Can I help you? Nice cat. Oh, thank you. She's a sweetheart. Keeps the house clear of mice, too. I just arrived in Gilded Vale, and I thought I'd get to know the locals. Right, I'm just making a friendly visit. Has nothing to do with any of your possessions. Were you with one of the caravans? She looks at you hopefully. Master Odemas, by chance? You knew Odema? Well, no more than most here, I'd say. He doesn't usually come this way, but they say he's a reliable old fellow. She pauses, brows furrowing. Wait, why do you say new? Oh, this is Celestia's sister. Of course. I'm sorry, but his caravan was attacked. I was the only one to survive. Alfra covers her mouth with her hand, her eyes wide with horror. For a few minutes she can manage nothing but a strangled, voiceless gasping, her eyes brimming with tears. I knew. I told her it was a dangerous path to take. Celicia was always so certain she could take on any danger. Alfra sniffs. Oh, my poor sister. I'm sorry, stranger. I just can't believe she's gone. If only I hadn't called her here. If I hadn't written to her. She might still be alive, somewhere. Celicia mentioned that she thought you needed help. Perhaps I can provide some assistance. Alfra looks at you with some surprise before dabbing at her nose with a sleeve. That's kind of you to offer, but I don't know if I could impose this on you. It's not a small favor. Alpha wipes at her eyes. I'm worried about the baby, about the legacy. I told Calicia as much as I could, but all I know is that for a long time now, every child born in Gilded Vale has been soulless, empty. It's happened to so many mothers, and Lord I can't remember how to pronounce that. Raedric, I think? He's exiled all of them, calling it a sign of the gods' disfavor. With my Hathor gone, I don't know how I'd manage if I lost my home, too. I hope Celicia would help me. They say Ranga, the old midwife, knows a way to prevent a child from being hollowborn, but she moved south to Anslog's Compass 2 seasons ago. The journey's too far for me, but I can't make it as I am. But I don't have anyone else now with Celicia gone. Please, can you help me? Alright, these are 2 paladin orders, it looks like. Well, of course, I will find Ranga for you. She's at Anslog's Compass. Okay. You will? Oh, gods bless you. Here, I'll give you coin to pay her with. You needn't trouble yourself with that. I think it's a drink she fashions out of, well, I'm not sure, but it shouldn't be too much of a burden to carry back. Anslog's Compass is what we call the lagoon to the south. You'll have to cross the wilds to get there. That's what keeps me from trying it myself. Thank you again, truly. You'll be saving us both. Okay. That's all we can do for poor Celicia, who died alongside us in the Bioec. Or in the aftermath of that machine. It's hard to say which. Who are these two? Guess we'll get to them. Another couple more portraits of them. This kind of reminds me of an old Jack London short story called The Sundog Trail. Each one of these is like a little piece of life. You see a lone man standing in a field. He looks around, surveying the crops. Occasionally, he bends to examine a leaf up close. He is intent on what he is doing, but completely absorbed in his work. This man approaches him from behind. He moves slowly, but does nothing to mask his approach. In his hand, he holds a large sword. There appears to be no malice or hatred in the man's demeanor. He almost seems pleased. The first man hears his approach and stands, turning away from the plant he was inspecting. His face breaks into a smile as he opens his arm to welcome the approaching man. The smile freezes into a grimace as the second man thrusts his sword through his stomach, its blade now protruding from his back. His arms slowly fall to his side, and blood starts to drip from the sword onto the plains below the man. As the first man crumples to his knees, the second pulls out the sword, a tear slowly falling down the cheek of his still smiling face. Wow, that's cold. You see a small group of people gathered around the ruins of a house. The destruction continues out from the single dwelling through the entire village. Not a single building still stands. Rubble is scattered everywhere. One of the men in the group leans over something in the debris. It is this man, younger, barely more than a boy. The man reaches out and shakes the boy by the shoulder. The boy makes no sound and doesn't respond to the man's disturbance. The man looks up at the other members of the group and shrugs, standing to rejoin his friend. The boy suddenly sits up, eyes wide. He scrabbles backwards away from the group, looking around in horror. The group moves towards him in unison, eliciting a yelp from the boy, who tries to move further away. A woman in the group puts out her hand, stopping the rest. She turns to them reproachfully, motions for them to stay, then looks at the boy on the ground, who is trying to push himself through what remains of a wall. He seems unaware he even has stopped. The woman slowly moves towards the boy, hands out, speaking in a low, calming tone. For a time, the boy doesn't even hear. He just closes his eyes and braces himself against the wall, expecting violence. Eventually, the woman's words work through the fear, and he hears her. He opens his tear-filled eyes and stares at her. She holds out a hand to him. He looks at it, seeming confused by the offer, then hesitantly reaches out. She takes his hand in hers and leans down to help him stand. Alright, well, I've already gone over my allotted episode time here, so even though this was much more of a story and exposition episode than a combat episode, I hope you enjoyed it anyway. If you did, please consider liking the video. But either way, I hope you all out there have a terrific day.